Good morning. My name is Chris Adlam with Youth Pleasure Employers. I'm delighted to be joined by Dorian from Proeon. Good morning, Dorian.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me your time to speak with me this morning. And I guess my sort of start of a 10 question is to be, can you tell me a little bit about Proeon and what the company does?
Yeah, sure. So Proeon is what I would say is a very specialist control systems business. Now, in the world, everything is being controlled digitally from mobile phones to laptops and computers. But in the industrial world, control is a lot more important than checking emails. It actually could be getting gas or electricity down to industry and down to your home. It could be running a nuclear power plant. It could be a wind farm. Control and automation covers a huge spectrum. Then you've got pharmaceutical, railways, all the rest of it, all those lovely things, all controlled digitally. And what Proeon does is provide a solution for many of the operators, clients, and so on and so forth, for their bespoke problems. And we specialize in what's known as complex and critical applications, often putting control systems in places where you don't want to go.
Can you give me an example of maybe the kind of client you might have then and the kind of request they might put in, to further expand upon what you just said there?
Okay, yeah, sure. So our client base historically has been energy. Yeah. So we it used to be sort of just oil and gas, didn't it? 40 years ago, 30 years ago, it was oil and gas. And our business started about 20 years ago with two founding fathers that started to engage with that sector, the gas sector, growing off the Norfolk coast and the Aberdeen coast here in the UK. And digitalization has become very strong in those sectors. However, probably in the last 10 years, we've started to look at how we supply control automation solutions to the utility sector, which is things like national projects for national infrastructure. And more recently, very recently, in the last 5 years, growing into the nuclear sector, whereby we provide control automation pathways for the nuclear industry and for renewables, with wind farms being a huge contributor to us now globally. So we provide an awful lot of support for projects in the continental Europe, in Germany, and in Holland and Belgium. And that's it. We're seeing that as a growth marketplace. And these control rooms are very much the kind of pinnacle of where control goes. So just a little bit of a flavor of that. It's all very well making something talk to something and making a valve open or a switch move, but then how do people make informed decisions with that? And you need to build a control room environment and display the software very graphically on big screens, and in an environment which is safe and conducive to being able to work properly. We design all of that as well.
That's really, really interesting and insightful. And to facilitate the different, functions of the organisation as you described there, then what kind of sort of teams, departments, and roles do you have within the organisation, to make that all happen?
Well, it's very varied, to be fair. I mean, it's very easy just to have some engineers and kind of frantically, geekily writing software and designing the control systems and hardware. But actually, just thinking about that solution, yes, you have CAD engineers, computer-aided design engineers that will design fit, form, and function, or the package, if you will. We have electrical engineers because everything's electrical. We have telecommunications engineers. We have specialist safety electrical control engineers, hazardous area control engineers, fire and gas engineers. So it becomes really quite broad there when you start doing digital control. And then a client will say, well, I want to run that from my facility in America or from London or from Europe. So then you need telecommunications engineers. So that's the engineering front. We're an engineering company. But actually, to make that machine work, that kind of process work, you need all the little cogs that connect it together. And within that, of course, you've got financial planners and financial people. You've got administration and support and secretarial work. You've got, of course, you've got to be able to promote it to the market, and you need marketeers, salespeople, PR and engagement. So within our company, you say, well, great, we're an engineering company. And yes, a majority of the personnel involved in the business are engineers. But without all of the different disciplines that we haven't got a business. So the opportunities that exist are huge within a company like ourselves for those different disciplines.
I mean, it's really insightful to hear, actually, and interesting, because, as you say, I think some people might hear, based on the description of your organisation there, and they might think purely, as you say, sort of just engineers. They won't probably think that it breaks down, as you say, into the various individual roles you've got there and the functions to support them as well. And and again, I do all of these employer talks as a layman, and then I suppose I don't know. Well, I don't know much, but I don't know much about half the sectors and people I'm speaking to. And this comes across to me as an organisation, as it was, where what you do is very, very vital, but it's probably the kind of organisation that not a lot of people would, they would just know it exists, if you see what I mean, but they wouldn't actually know, who you are, what you're doing. So my long-winded question for this is, for a young person who's maybe looking to get into this kind of field, what kind of sort of research or work or experience should they be getting, when they're maybe around sort of, 16, 17, that would really help them well for when they, take their first footsteps into the sector?
That is that's quite a complicated question to answer. So I'll chuck it down a little bit, because there's always the daunting thing for any young person going into work is the fact that I've got to work. I've got to earn my keep. I've got to work. And so often the confusion can reign, and you can feel daunted by the prospects of what choices do I take? What career pathway? What am I going to do at university or college? And what I would always suggest at this fundamental lower level is, one, concentrate on getting the fundamentals right. If you are savvy and work very well on maths and what have you, you're going to be okay. That's the first benchmark. Work on maths, because that works across any discipline you take. Then when you look at a company like Proeon to hunt us down and look at what the opportunities are, you can if you just take like a mold and go, there's Proeon, you'd kind of see that there's all these little fissures that crack through, and software engineering can lead to mechanical engineering, can lead to whatever. I would suggest that pick a discipline that you feel confident with, and confidence means that you know it and you feel as though you understand it and prepared to continue learning with it. Then you can start to decide whether I'm going to go down the software side, the hardware development, the mechanical engineering side. And a company like Proeon, who are a kind of a piece in the jigsaw. We're not a major, huge organization like Siemens, for example, or a major operator like a Shell or an EDF Energy or whatever. We're not one of those big companies. But what we do is facilitate solutions to make those organizations function. So you'll always find us in the tier 2, tier 1 category, as it's called. So if you're starting to use the kind of terminology of an individual needs to look up tier 1, tier 2 type company, EPC houses, and there's quite a lot of jargon, as we call it, around the organizations that you need to interface with. So someone who's interested, look at who's the end user. That's what we would say, which would be your EDFs, your Shells, your Scottish Southern Powers, your Orsteds, those large organizations, and then look at who do they use to deliver their solutions, because they don't do it. And you can have a job as an operator, but the interesting stuff happens at our level, where the problems are solved. And so look at who are the companies that are supply chaining there, and then look at the disciplines within that, and then make your informed decisions to say, career-wise, I'd like very much to be someone dangling from a wind turbine in the North Sea, in which case, what do I need to do to get there? I need to be a process engineer, I need to be a controls engineer, a mechanical engineer, and make those stepping stones up.
And even broader than that, actually, in terms of that's really insightful information about the precise steps that a young person could look to do. If we're talking broadly about the skill set that would serve someone well within within an engineering company, such as this, if we're talking, sort of personality traits, soft skills, in a, as I say, I know nothing about engineering, but I know that within a sector, it must always be evolving, must always be changing. So I'm guessing that sort of, some of the skills that might serve someone well, I guess, are sort of adaptability, curiosity,
yes.
So from your experience, what alongside those, and please, go into them in more detail, but I'm just referencing them. What personality traits and skills would serve someone well in the sector?
So personality, someone who's keen is a big one. Someone who wants to turn up, because guess what? If you want to be successful, the hours suck. Yeah, they really do. So you've got to bear in mind that the demand of good skilled people means that they have to work some pretty obscure hours. Okay. And it's not pleasant, but if you're young, it's far better to do it now than to do it when you get older. And that's when you can pick and choose. So perseverance, ability to be flexible, and do some sort of effort and graft. But the other thing which will get you through is tenaciousness, your ability to go, I'm going to take this home and learn it and be on top of this because I want to be the best at it. Not I deserve to be the best, which is not going to get you very far at all. You've got to say, I want to be. And it doesn't matter at any point in your career pathway, if you continue to say to yourself, I want to be the best, you will get there. And I think what tends to happen is we see a lot of people that say, I am the best. And that's not going to get you very far. So I'd suggest there's two here. What's going to work and what's not going to work? You will be the best by wanting to be the best. But if you continue to say you're the best, you're probably not going to get very far. And the other thing I would suggest, the other thing I would just final on that point to say, as an individual, you can obviously continue to work and persevere and graft and all the rest of it. But the amount of effort you put into something is always much more than you think it's going to be. So learn by your mistakes. You will make mistakes on your journey, and don't be put off by your mistakes. A lot of people can get really distracted by errors, mistakes, criticism, critique. Well, you learn from it. Your life is about failure, believe it or not, but don't dwell on that. Use it as another stepping stone to carry on your career.
That's a really nice piece of advice that actually goes quite well into my next question in terms of you talk about, as you say, about sort of challenges and learning from them. And, you know, I know there's no such thing in any job role as a typical day. No, it doesn't exist in any, you know, in any role. But within Proeon, you know, what do the challenging days look like and what do the good days look like?
Well, let's start with a challenging day. A challenging day is often perhaps on site. So you're working for a company who has capital equipment that provides energy to a large populace, let's say. And when you get to that site, it isn't represented or it isn't in front of you as it was described in that email. That's not a good day. And you have to summon all your sort of wit and what have you. And my engineering team that I work with, the colleagues, are very dedicated to have to explore and open that box, if you like, and go, wow, that's not how it should have been. And then all bets are off as to what you intended to do that day. That can be a bad day, a long day, but we always get there in the end. That's the challenge. A good day is, say, a week or two after finding that challenge and finding that it wasn't as described and the documents didn't stack up and it didn't plug in how it was supposed to on the box, let's say. The good bits is when you finally get that closed out and a client is stood beside you saying, wow, that was a tough job and I'm really pleased I picked you guys to do it because it works now. And the client feedback aspect is something that a lot of people get. That's the win. That's the bit that makes you feel warm. You succeeded, you learned from it, and the client is happy with it.
And as you said there, I guess that's actually one of the pros of the job that maybe, as you say, goes under the radar a little bit. You know, people always say oh, you know, I'm going to get into this kind of career path because it's going to be evolving, challenging, you know, there's going to be lots of chance for me to be, you know, creative, etc. But it's actually, as you said there, the simple, you know, part of just fulfilling the customer's request and getting a positive reaction can, I say, be a great motivator, you know, for the role long term.
Yeah. Yes. It's not just about salary and being able to have a comfortable sort of monetary lifestyle. It's about the well-being and feeling that you get, the buzz that you get from doing a good job and knowing that some of these big projects that are out there are being done by a little old company like ourselves. That's quite a good buzz. You can't bag that up and take it to Tesco's, I know, but it is actually something that is a great sort of pat on the back for everyone involved in the challenges that we face. And that should be something that motivates people.
And my final question, really, Jorin, and you've mentioned so many great pearls of wisdom and pieces of advice in this talk. And, you know, it would be interesting now that if you were to go back and speak to, say, your younger self, 17, 18-year-old, something like that, maybe you're about to sort of go out on your career path again, you know, take into account the things you said there and maybe mistakes you've made and learned from successes you've had. What's the one piece of career advice you go back and give your younger self?
Wow. No, that's a very, very good question. I think for me, I would probably take myself to a quiet room and just say, listen, don't stress about it. You're going to be just fine. So, because that's part of the challenge. I think the career advice is wonderful. People say you should look at this, that, the other, but actually just calming people down a little bit and saying, it ain't that bad. Whatever you pick as a university or a college diploma, course, or degree, you may not end up doing as a career pathway. So, and be prepared to look for different opportunities. So, yes, it's going to be a challenge, but do not get scared by it. Don't be daunted by it. Don't worry about it. And whatever you pick and choose as your career path at college, university, or whatever, you may not end up doing in your final career life, in which case, just go with the journey, go with the flow, and work hard all the way through.